We've learned so much from 6 a.m. on, and we'll continue to do so. This place is 217,000 acres, 37,000 or so enlisted soldiers. And as we learned earlier from the chief, the boss there, half of them are teenagers. So a massive operation going on here. But so many great guests with Bucky and myself, and Colonel Craig Flowers was kind enough to join us to bring his expertise to the conversation. But it looks like we have the real expert about to join our program, because, you know, we're talking Texas OU. One of the main goals, Buck, of doing this show was to come talk sports with the truth. Because
right.
We know
that's right.
When you say thanks every morning at 6:02 in the morning, and we talk sports and thank them throughout the course of the show, we know they're listening to talk about sports. Gets away from what they're doing on a daily basis. So let's bring the sports to them, which is a cool thing. And we've learned a lot. We learned about the intramural program here on installation, which is very cool. But look who's here with us right now. This is pretty cool. This guy's got a nickname. This guy's got a YouTube channel where he talks Texas football. This is what it's all about. We have First Lieutenant 𝗟𝗓𝗞𝗘 and Locke, as we're going to call him. Locke. He's from Hurst, Texas. He's a good Texan, DeSoto, Texas as well. Locke, how are you?
I'm doing outstanding, sir. Just happy to be on, like you said. Normally we're making our commute from Copper's Cove, where I live now, into, you know, the gates of Fort Hood every morning. And I pull into the parking lot about the time Bucky, you know, gives that thank you. And it really does mean a lot to me. And yeah, I'm just here to talk ball. Excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Ball. Now tell us about your YouTube channel.
So recently I came back from Korea in January of 2019. And I was thinking about joining it's when COVID started. There was a lot of teleworking going on. And I thought about, you know, jumping into the grad program. But at the time when we were, my brother, who's my co-host, Clint, we're stationed in Korea, there wasn't a whole lot you could get from Armed Forces Network. Like, you're not getting the number of games that you get stateside that you would get in Korea. So we had to rely on YouTube. And there's one channel out there, Fanatic Perspective, that we followed. And then when I redeployed back, I was like, you know, I got to find something to do with my time. And so, like I said, I thought about dropping into a grad program down at UIW in organizational development, and just called my brother one day and I was like, hey man, we've been talking sports for 30 years. What do you think about, you know, jumping on board a YouTube channel? He said, absolutely not. He thought about it for 48 hours. He came back to me, and it's the worst podcast you've ever seen on YouTube. It was actually an audio podcast on YouTube.
An audio podcast?
With speakerphones. And we've grown a lot over the last, we've got like 3,200 subscribers now on YouTube. We have had opportunities to interview Longhorn commitments over the last couple of years. And just growing the channel each and every day. We do a pregame show, a postgame show right after about the kickoff.
I love it. 𝗟𝗓𝗏𝗘 is with us. Locke, and what is the name of the YouTube channel?
So it's Texas Football Talk.
There it is. That's straight to the point. I like that.
Right there.
We'll talk some Texas football with us then. How are we feeling 5 days out to the big game?
So my battle buddy, Brendan Ford, you had him on at 7:30 time block. We actually share an office together. So
He's a Sooner.
That's the OU fan that you had. so we've been talking back and forth.
You didn't seem happy about that.
No, it's going to be a rough week for somebody next week. Hopefully it's him and not me. But how do I feel about the football game? I feel really good about the football game. Since that Arkansas loss up there in Fayetteville, I think this team's continued to grow. We talked about the weaponry. You know, I would like to see 𝗟𝗓𝗏 Worthy. You know, he had a couple good games. Wasn't as consistent, drops of balls last week. Whittington's hitting miss sometimes, but then of course, like the guys before me talked about, you got Bijan Robinson. I think this, and then of course Keelan Robinson, and then Roschon Johnson. And I think that's going to be your offensive game plan. I think you're going to do exactly what you did against TCU. You're going to try to grind them out. You're going to try to. Brendan seems to think they can stop Bijan between the tackles. I don't think so. I've seen him bust tackles on outside zone. I've seen him bust tackles up the middle, and he knows as well as I do his peripheral game. You know, that horizontal passing game is very important in Coach Sarkisian's offense. Get the ball to Casey's hands, see the weapons, and let them do their thing.
Deploy your weapons, Buck. I would say to this, Buck, and I want your thoughts, because you said earlier that it was a C-level performance for Texas against TCU, and I agree with you. And that would be my reason for optimism if you're picking Texas in this game. They played a C-level game, and boy, if they cash in a couple of those red zones, it's a blowout. I mean, it's a 20-point game.
Yeah.
And you didn't play great. A couple of breaks here and there, you blew out a team that you struggled with a C performance. Imagine if you put together an A performance and get ready for this game. And if everybody on that offense, the other 10 guys, rise to play to Bijan's level. And I think you've seen that before, Buck, with a special player like Ricky Williams, or Doug Flutie, where when the team believes, man, we have a special force here, we have to raise our level to be a part of that, and if we do, we can do special things.
You know, when you talked about Whittington and Xavier, he's one of those young guys that, you know, eventually they hit a time where they're just going to get real nervous. He looked very nervous last week at TCU. That's a huge game. It's a game that he knows the pressure on it because they're used to beating Texas. So when he gets in the game, his hands become feet. I mean, balls are just going all over the place. The routes look not so good. And for Jordan Whittington, I mean, there's another guy who's just actually getting back into the flow. He's been hurt an awful lot. So you got two really main receivers that really don't have a lot of experience. One gets into a big game, he's a little nervous. The other one has been hurt for 2 years, so they're both kind of inexperienced. But the good thing about that, those guys are just, it's on the job training for them, and that's one great thing for them. But just like what you guys do, you know, strategically, there's some things that can get you beat this week if you let it happen to you, and that's they have individual players that are better than your individual players. You can play really well as a team and well as a group, but technically and tactically for Sark, if he doesn't take care of a few guys in this defensive front for Oklahoma, they wreck your entire game plan. I think this is a coach who's too smart to let other coaches before may have let a single person wreck their game plan. Hopefully Sark is not going to let 2 or 3 guys in this defensive line wreck their game plan, because as good as Bijan is, the guys that he made miss that were in the holes last week, when I say they played to a C kind of game, I mean, there were a number of guys just unblocked, and that guy's that talented. He makes 1 guy, he makes 2 guys miss. But if you try that this week, and if you go in with the game plan that, you know what, we're going to get tough, our guys are going to get better, that guy is just as good as that guy, I think he's too smart. No, they got guys that are better than your guys. Their defensive line is better than your offensive line. And if you don't take care of certain players, you're going to lose the football. You're just basically going to lose the football game. Just that simple.
Lieutenant Lockaby, when you look at Oklahoma, break them down a little bit.
Like Brendan, I don't spend a whole lot of time looking at the opponent until the game week, because again, we're doing
game week, baby.
Right. For our show, we're looking at, just like last week, TCU, in order to do a pregame show. So until we turn that page, really haven't had a lot to talk about Oklahoma or thoughts. But I agree with you, Bucky, in a sense that we just shifted our whole offensive line. So if you're asking me about things I'm concerned of, you took Kerstetter and you moved him from outside to inside. Mm-hmm. You now brought Carrick in, so that we know as well as anybody that line continuity is that thing. He talked about his guys, his beast like Nick Benito and Perrion Winfrey and that defensive front that they have. My concern is now that you move Kerstetter from tackle to guard, move Carrick outside, what do you do now with that offensive line continuity?
Well, as I said, the one guy, Benito, you can't let him go one-on-one in either side of the line. When Bijan's not carrying the ball, if he's laid into a pattern, he's got to help with the guy on the outside. And as a running back, you can eyeball and see when that guy's getting beat, that you have to step in and chip him.
And I think the Colonel's question about Oklahoma, I think the Sooners' single best unit is their defensive line.
Yes.
And that's a problem, because and Benito's not a linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't watched a lot of Nick Benito, he wears number 11, and he'll remind you a little bit of Joseph Osai for Texas a year ago.
Right.
He plays that jack position where he'll stand up sometimes, have hand on the ground sometimes, and he's an all-day cookie, man. It's coming all day, and they're going to line him up over number 70 for Texas.
Every opportunity they get,
and see if they can wreak havoc. And my other side of that is, that's going to be there, and I think you're right about Sark understanding that. He can watch the film, and he understands you're going to have to help him. Christian Jones on the left side. Can somebody on the Texas defensive front become that war daddy too? Do they have a guy? Because Oklahoma's offensive line has been by no means been dominant. Their run game has not been dominant. Both teams have had the same struggles on offense to create long plays down the field and chunk plays. Texas's advantage is they have Bijan Robinson, and Oklahoma does not. But can Texas discover an Alfred Collins or is this an Ovia Gofu game? Because we know legends are made in this game. Guys who maybe weren't thought of that way before, all of a sudden step up and make huge plays and huge opportunities. Who are the guys most likely on the Texas side to do that? That's what you're looking for in this ballgame.
Well, I wish I could find one.
Kobe Jones would be the closest for me.
Well, I wish I could say a number, but it's few and far between, because we haven't seen that much of it. It's been a very passive type of keep everything in front of you, keep it in front, don't get beat long. So I never see the really aggressive player. If they have them, I don't know. It's Tuesday, and right now I don't pick Texas to win that football game.
Right.
It's just Tuesday, but I don't pick. I'm not picking the Longhorns to beat Oklahoma, because I think that kind of defense that they play right now sits well for Lincoln Riley. He will find ways to get guys. If you don't pass rush the quarterback, he's going to have guys crossing, and he's going to be picking up, those chunk yards for him become yardage that when he gets in the scoring zone, he's going to hurt you. So if you don't get somebody, as he says, to really put pressure on, if you don't have a game plan to put pressure on their quarterback, who people are saying is not very good, by the way, he's undefeated, and he's still a pretty good quarterback. If there's not that guy, if there's not what you're going to do defensively that's going to really pressure him, I'm not ready to say, okay, here's how Texas wins, because you can't just win with Bijan. He just can't do this alone.
Did last week. Jeremy Lockaby is with us in the podcast, his Texas Football Talk on YouTube. That's just the podcast, the YouTube channel. Is there a guy on defense that stood out for you so far that maybe could step up and become one of those legends after this game?
I think the one with the most potential, like you said, is Jacoby Jones. But when I look at PK's defense, have we seen everything that he has to send on the defensive front? I think he's saving some stuff. Yeah. And I really like the depth of our defensive line with Ajomo and Coburn and Sweat and Jones and, like you said, a Gofu coming off that jack position. So I don't know that we have a war daddy as you described it, Aaron, but what I do know is that we have a pretty deep lineup, and I don't think we've seen the scheme, the total scheme from PK and his front seven at this point.
I do like the Ojomo mention, because I think he can be a gap penetrator. And really, for me, if Texas is going to create big plays in this game, I think it's going to be zero. I think it's going to be overshown on some time blitzes. He's the best athlete in that front seven, in my opinion.
Yeah,
the most sudden player. Yeah. He's going to have to come make plays. I heard earlier in the week somebody interviewed Derek Johnson, and Derek Johnson said he reminds me a little bit of me when I first got the linebacker, where he's looking to make plays, he's looking to make turnovers, and that's what decides this game, Colonel. You know that from way back. Your wife, Miss Beth, she's a Sooner fan. This game's decided on who takes control of the ball and who can force those turnovers, and the Longhorns have been pretty good at that, including 3 last week against TCU.
3 turnovers. How many of those were converted to touchdowns?
0.
That's right. So that's got to be worked on through the after-action review. And if they convert those and Sark said that, that's where we don't need field goals out of those. We need 21 points. And when you do that, no question that Texas, it's a different game.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the way the linebackers have played. Both the linebackers who just, were kind of learning on the fly, I think they've played really, really well. They get out in space and they make some tackles. You can take advantage of the one kid if you really want to, one-on-one. Okay, but you can't take advantage of the other guy. Overshown made about 4 tackles in that game Saturday. That was out the gate. If he doesn't get an arm on a guy and bring him down, on those cutback runs, that score may be differently, but he made some really good plays that you really didn't see. All you know is he was the last man in the screen. If he doesn't reach back because of his athletic ability, then the young Evans is having a great day. And I like the way he plays, but I think he's right. That's the guy now you have to find a way, let him loose. He's got to be your blitzer. You got to hope that he can get to the quarterback, he can get to the running back, because they don't have a dynamic running back right now. They don't have the guy that we're
used to seeing. Ward's the best, and he's just pretty good. Now, he's the Tennessee transfer.
But you know what will happen this week? Lincoln Riley will find a way to use that H-back, dude. That's coming this week.
They always do. All right, well, that's fun. Jeremy, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for listening when you do drive through the gates every morning, and good luck with the YouTube channel. Mention it again and how people can find it.
It's a Texas Football Talk at YouTube. Again, it's a co-host. I'm the co-host. My brother's the other guy. Clint's kind of the play-by-play guy.
Nice.
I'm the color analyst.
I love it.
He does all the talking, and then I just kind of throw in my 2 cents here and there. But thank you guys for having us. Really appreciate you guys being here at the great place.
Outstanding. Jeremy Lockaby out of DeSoto, Texas, by way of Hurst, Texas, in the great state. We're coming back. We roll on live at Fort Hood.